Welcome to the Microsoft Security Insights Podcast with your hosts, Franklin Grimberg and Edward Walton, where we discuss Microsoft 365 security and Azure security news and products. Recorded April 14th, 2021, 6:04 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, or East Coast. Oh man, what is great? Time acknowledgement. If it's past 5, is it evening or is it still afternoon?
I'm just distracted. Are you like wearing a nicotine patch or something like that? What's the deal?
Dude, remember I burnt 3rd-degree burns. Remember I told you over Easter? And dude, I thought I was going to go to the doctor, but did a skin graft. But, I got that Wolverine healing factor with the Band-Aid and Neosporin. I was roasting a duck because my wife wanted a duck. And I was reaching into, we have this fancy roasting pan. I don't multitask very well, and you know that, right? And so I'm reaching in.
The man with 15 monitors next to him. Go ahead.
Whatever. So I'm reaching in. I realize, you about to make a very bad mistake because the roasting pan is really fancy. It has a metal handle. So I get I'm a big barbecue. I have like literally 700-degree rated mittens that look like hand. They're really, really good, expensive. So I reach in, I grab it. And the oven's only like 375. You can literally, with these mittens, grab it. No temperature at all. So as I'm holding it and getting ready to, I noticed that the duck skin is stuck to the top of it. Like, that's the best part. So I'm reaching to get something to scrape it. And my wife yelps about something that startles me. And when I turn around, it's a long top, right? It leans into this. Oh shit. Okay. And but it's better now, man. The blistered pus fell open, skin's off, and now the new skin's coming. But I still got to keep it protected because when I'm running, the sweat will get in it, man. It absolutely stung the whole time yesterday. Hey, man, I was running yesterday, so my training plan called for 6 miles. Because I don't know my neighborhood, I ended up running 11 yesterday. I got lost. Then it dawned on me, Edward, turn your phone on and find your way back on. Man, 11 miles at 84-degree heat. I was like, and it's really hilly in Atlanta, right? But hey, I'm getting in race shape. I'll be ready for my first half marathon. I can run it now, but because I got a 5-miler tomorrow, a 10-miler on Friday, and a 13 or either 15-miler on Saturday, right? So I'll be ready, but to run competitively, is it still April? So April, May, June. End of June, I'll be able to run 13 miles, hour and a half, hour 32 minutes, something like that. So I'll be back in competitive shape. And then toward the end of the year, I should be sub 130 in a half marathon. We'll see.
So what did you do in technology this week?
Oh, we talking about technology on this show? Oh yeah. So so I'm helping with a POC, and I'm working across multiple clients, man. So it seems to be trying time. I'm working 4 Defender for Endpoint POCs and POVs and POUs. POC, proof of concept, POV, proof of value, and POU, proof of use case, right? I love use cases when the customer can define what they want. Everybody's displacing McAfee, right? The other part about it is the customer didn't even consider CrowdStrike. Like, nope. And I said, well, why not? I mean, it's not a bad product, right? I'm a Microsoft homer, but you got to give credit to good products, right? It's like they don't have the ecosystem of all the TI that's built into it for the things that we want to do, particularly around Office 365, and we're using MDO. We want that insight. The other things that may be superior in the product is not relevant to us.
So has Defender for Endpoint moved above
yes.
Cloud App Security now?
No, absolutely not. I had a customer and they absolutely love MCAS, even though it's noisy. They finally were able to narrow down this one user that was just downloaded arbitrary software and doing it. And No, it'll never move above cloud app security. MCAS number one, Sentinel number two, Defender for Identity three, and just because I'm petty, Defender for Endpoint number four. Just because I'm petty, right? But Defender for Endpoint, man, it's making huge inroads. The joke of it not being ready for prime time, which is what I want to talk about while we have a minute before we actually get into the content of the show. I heard something today, then I had to come back and think about it, and I wanted to ask your opinion on it. I keep hearing that there are not enough security people in the world. There are not enough security people to be hired. And so I listened to another podcast, and it made me think, and I sort of agree with the podcast narrator and the host. He said, it's not so much that there's not enough people. Industries are hiring the wrong people, and they're going about the hiring process, in my opinion, totally wrong. Sometimes they are getting the product, security product, you name a product, I don't care what it is. Then they go out and try to find the talent. Okay. If they already have security talent, it seems that they never consider the skilling up and the training of the product before the purchase, which makes the user and the people ultimately that have to administer, monitor, maintain, and support this product, it makes them it makes not reluctant, but it makes them very they get aggravated about the decision makers who have a C in their title or a director in their title who arbitrarily go out and look at Gartner, Forrester, whatever recommendation from external sources to say this is the best product, this is what you should be doing. But the reason you struggle with implementation and the reason you struggle with the adoption of the product, no one thinks about skilling up your people. And to all our security practitioners, if you listen to us and you're in charge of hiring talent, maintaining talent, and doing it, you better skill your people. Because if the person goes out and gets skilled and you put them in a bad place where they're up under the gun, having to deploy, maintain, evaluate, and do this product, and you just skill them up so it's trial by fire, but eventually they get skilled, they're going to leave. Because now they have a very viable and tangible talent set that it says, oh, this is in demand, and this is what you pay me, and you won't pay me what I perceive I'm worth, especially if they see their peers getting paid. They're going to leave. So I tell customers, invest in your people. Don't make the evaluation on a product solely about the capabilities of the product. Make it about, can I come up with an adoption framework? Everything from skilling my people, maybe hiring additional talent, and getting their input beyond, because you're getting your security people to say, hey, we're doing a POV. You're not involving them in the process. You're basically telling them this is what you're going to use. So learn it. So it goes back to your, I believe, sort of your philosophy and your mindset. Let training be the entry point, and let skilling be the entry point into the adoption of software packages, right? And software feature sets. And so I don't think it's just a lack of security talent. And there is a shortage. But these industries are hiring the wrong people.
Well,
Yeah.
I have a slightly different take on it. So what I see is that a lot of companies are, sorry, all the consultants out there. So what I see is that companies have good people.
Mm-hmm.
And then they look at putting in a product like this, and basically they go to an outside consultant that comes in, does the implementation, then leaves. And what happens is if they actually just spent 1 week, 2 weeks investing in their own people who knows their environment, right? Then they could actually start implementing these products, maybe in a way that's, in a guided way by a consultant.
Mm-hmm.
But, I see too many people coming in and then leaving as consultants, and then they take everything with them. And then these people that are left behind don't have experience with the tool. So I think you're right about investing in people. I don't think, having consultants come in and leave right after that is the way to go. You should strategically use consultants in a way that gets the implementation done, but also invests in your people in a knowledge transfer way.
Hmm.
Does that
Hmm.
make sense?
It does. If I was in a leadership position at some company and I was in charge of skill skilling, uh, knowledge increase, uh, talent retention. I'm like saying HR, right? Human resources, right? It sounds so impersonal, but talent retention. The best investment in your people's time. I would force my individuals to go to training, right? And you don't have to take vacation time, okay? And you will be removed from the day to day. If I catch you on email responding to anything, you're in trouble. Go out and concentrate on it, and don't feel as though you're behind or something, right? And you got to have some measurables. Training for the sake of training without testing your skill set, even though certifications have their place, I would make sure that there's some type of a certificate other than certificate of attendance associated with that, right? And that's really based on the difficulty of the certification associated to the training. And not every training that you get is going to have a applicable certification or a lab or something. But go to training. Well, I got go. Don't want to see you on email. Don't want to see you on Teams. Don't want to see you after hours.
Well, it's like I told you about doing the forensics 508 for you. Just go stay at the hotel, pay the extra money to go to the hotel,
Mm-hmm.
stay there. Don't worry about having to drive, through the traffic back and forth or whatever,
Mm-hmm.
and focus on that exclusively for the entire, 6 days for that one. Um,
And that's the
that's
old
how you
days
got to
where you
do it.
could travel to go on site.
Yeah.
One of the other things, if you do take an on-site course, here are some secrets. Stay in a hotel, like you said. Eat at the same restaurant every day. Don't worry about what you're going to eat. Eat at the same place. If you're eating at the same place as in the hotel, eat there and go to the room and anything you weren't sure on, do. Number two, don't fraternize and don't socialize, right? Hey, the guys are going out for drinks. That's not what you're here for.
Well, Sands has evening events where you're supposed to do that. So,
Well, when I did the capture the flag, it was okay, and I wanted to be there because I was the dumbest man on the team. I was holding them back. Like we probably came in fifth because of my dumb ass, right? I was like, we got a Windows guy on the team. Like, Mr. Windows guy, you sit over there and take notes. Let the real pen testers and the CTI, like, yeah, is that right? But eventually, because I had more Windows experience than a lot of these folks, right? Like, oh, Ed, what do you
but
think? I said,
I'm going to have to stop you right there. So a CTF, you have to understand, you might have been part of a team. You don't go in there, in my opinion, to win the CTF. You go in there. This is no lie. Okay, you go in there to do better than you did last time. Okay, because you're not going in there the first time. You're not going to win, right? I don't actually sign up for a team when I do CTFs. I just
well,
go there and I learn, and I get killed on certain questions or whatever, and then next time I know that I'm going to do better. So it's about your personal best, not about winning the CTF
what?
when you're just new.
Shh. And you one of those everybody gets a trophy guy too. Anyway, this CTF was put
And what's
together.
wrong with that? And what's wrong
No,
with that?
everybody doesn't
Hey,
get a trophy.
participation.
Well, anyway,
I'm kidding.
well, this CTF was bet on Net Wars, so you had to be
Right.
on the team, and they had acknowledgement of first, second, third, fourth, right? And
Right.
and it's bragging rights.
And then there's
You
first time people there. But when you go to Net Wars, you have to understand when they open it up, right? People that have been to the previous Net Wars, they're already entering in all the answers. These people are almost done by the time you look up for the first time. So, they have like the first time in Net Wars, stuff like that. So
mm-hmm.
you maybe on your fifth time there, you can actually compete to actually win it all, but you have to understand that that's not going to happen. So you have to look at how it's all about you, Edward, and how to improve yourself, right?
Well, that's where that it was for me because I learned so much just looking over these guys' shoulder. And they did ask the question because you're much more skilled in it. They did say, "All right, how many people here is this their first time doing this type of stuff?" It wasn't, it was a huge room, right? And they silo you off and they give you down and you get your pod. So let's say there was 85 people in the room. How many people this is their first type of net worth thing? Out of 85 people, maybe 10 raise their hand. So it goes back to validate exactly what you're talking about. How many people there second time? Then more hands. Third time, more hands, right? And because they bought these packages, and so when they get these packages, they get to come back every year and they put their teams, and it was pretty good. But anyway, um, that was my rant about organizations need to invest in their people beyond just believing that, oh, I'm helping you out by giving you a new product to maintain. You're helping me out. So what did I do this week? A lot of MDE. Uh, Sentinel more around integration. I'm seeing a lot of cool collaboration and coexistence with Sentinel next to other log products. So customers saying, hey, we already have a very mature elk deployment. We're using Phantom here. We have Sumo Logic. We want Sentinel here. We don't have any immediate plans to displace this. We have a very specific use case for Sentinel because we want to put it closest to where our cloud assets are, meaning Azure, right? So I saw a lot of that this week, which is pretty cool. Something was over my head, so I had to pull a peer in to come in and talk about Phantom and that are deeper in elk than I am, right? Because they were more interested in SOAR and whether Sentinel start and whether something else pick up, or whether does that start and whether Sentinel pick up. So that was pretty good. And I also have seen and you and I talked about this out of band and privately. I'm starting to see a lot more interest in MSSPs, not for the SIM part, but for XDR. They
Right.
want response for endpoint. The SIM stuff, because everybody knows that's in the past. Whatever you're seeing in the SIM for the most part, unless you're using Livestream or whatever another product is, it's already occurred. SIM is nothing more than forensics to me, right? So they're looking at this XDR when they get these things. So I'm seeing a lot of MSSPs pivoting and getting away from the login and say, hey, we can be your MSSP when it comes to co-response. You're going to get the alert. We're going to get the alert. We're going to double team this together, and we can triage it together. So that's pretty cool. At the same time, they're not a whole lot of partners that do it well.
Well, I have many opinions on this, and I will withhold them from the podcast.
We talked about it, right? So hey, we said how it is here, right? We don't hold any punches on this podcast. We'll tell you how we think it is. We have highly opinionated facts. Other than that, man, things are pretty good. My car hasn't broken down. Getting back in shape. The weather outside is crazy. Trees are waving back and forth down here in Atlanta, right? Bad thunderstorms again. What else did I break? Got a Linux box I got to get MDE on, and a Mac box. I got to get that done this week for the lab. Oh, I sent old Rod Trent, friend of the show, co-host on occasion, a little goodie bag, right? So I sent him some firewall switches. And
Did you ever send me a tap? What's the deal?
That's what I thought this box was.
Okay.
Right, because I ordered two.
All right.
And I have it. I was just going to surprise you because you told me to send you the Amazon link. So I asked one of my peers, Beth. She's really good on IoT stuff, so she told me which one to get. So as soon as Amazon sends it to me, I'll box up and send you one.
It drove me crazy this week. I had to do IoT work and thinking the whole time about the whole Defender for IoT situation. So support did actually finally get back to me after days, and they say, oh, by the way, we credited your credit card, and this is a one-time thing. It's like, okay, first of all, I've already disputed this. Number two, I've asked you many times, how can I turn this off? I don't want to be charged anymore. Now you're just saying, oh, be happy that we're giving you this courtesy thing. And of course, since I had to turn off my subscription, waiting, I had to do some IoT work, which normally would fall under my $150 a month in MCT credit for Azure, and I get to start paying for that stuff now. So yeah, not happy about that. But on the good side, I started my offensive security evasion course, so I've been having fun with that. But that's the sort of thing I'm really looking forward to, and it's one of the things where I'm kind of naturally talented in that area, so I'm having fun with that. So,
well, knowing you, man, and the way you have focus, you're gonna kill it. I have my moments, right, when I'm super, and then some days like do. I'm having less do and more focus, right? I regardless of whom I'm going to get to pay for my 508, I'm moving forward with it. Um, and something happened the other day. The light went on right on my bald head, and all the KQL stuff started making sense. It really did. I'm like, oh, oh. And to our listeners to say, if you really want to do it, grab about 4 different queries or analytic rules or whatever and make them all work together. Then you'll get it. You'll start understanding union, join, projection. Like, it makes sense. And the way I learned it is going to be one of our podcast guests, and she's going to talk about Azure Defender for IoT and how to do detections. And it is actually pretty good because she collaborated with someone that wrote the entire attack chain scenario with Sysmon setup by modifying the test script when you deploy the syslog server, right? I think I'm saying it right. So we're going to get her on.
Sysmon's for Windows. Syslog is for
Syslog. Yeah. So we're going to push all of our. I'm looking at my calendar back here for those who want to know. So we have 2 guests that are going to be lined up for the last 2 Wednesdays of the month, and then and we push it off another month. We want to have Girl Power in May, where we're going to have all female cybersecurity experts. So I got 2 lined up that are already committed, and I got 2 more that I have invitations out to. And we want
might
to
have
show.
to. We can move the show time just because we're dealing with international stuff.
Yeah, international. Yeah, because they're out of the country too. So that's going to be interesting. So we got a good guest coming up next week, and then we have another good guest coming up the week after, and then we should be into May, and then we'll start looking at different guests, right? Hey, well, you asked me what I did interesting this week. What did you do interesting?
I told you I started the class and did the IoT thing.
That's not interesting, man. That's just you being.
The OSEP stuff is interesting. Come on.
Yeah, I know. I'm just jealous, man, because I don't have that affinity for and that skill set. I do what I do well. I've really got really good back in networking again. So my network data center downstairs, so it's built out. The racks came, so I got a Cisco ASA over there to deploy, a Palo Alto 500, a Cisco all-in-one security appliance. It's a Cisco. Let me see here. 861 wireless.
You got way too many toys, man.
Well, what we're going to do is, for those that are cool with me, cool with you, they need access to a lab or something. And plus, I got a new Fortinet of 60E fully. And guess what the cool part about it? They gave it to me because I wrote a blog or wrote something in a review for it. It came licensed for 2 or 3 years. And Fortinet has a FortiSIM. They have a SIM component in the cloud. So I have that for at least 2 more years. So I can compare. Not only can I send the logs to my syslog server that eventually gets to log analytics and Sentinel, but I want to see what their cloud is catching, which is actually pretty cool. So once I go through it, maybe we'll do some screen shares and maybe do some lives and show, hey, this is how Fortinet sees it. This is how Cisco ASA sees it. This is how Palo Alto sees it. And then I got a buddy that started a Checkpoint, and he's supposed to get me a NFR. So getting appliances are easy. What's not easy is trying to get a Proofpoint license, right? To get a Mimecast subscription, to get these subscription-based type services, because nobody wants to give those to you, right? So the hardware piece of being able to understand facilities, logging, tags, understanding how Self is being able to disseminate the different types of appliances that you have and tagging those correctly. That's going to be useful for those, right? I know syslog is syslog and Self is Self, but being able to understand exactly what the product looks like in live fire is going to be good. So I'm going to get all that taken downstairs. I got a couple of Cisco Catalyst 2950s and 60s with fiber uplinks. I got a brand new Meraki set that came with the access point, the MX appliance, and a managed switch. So once I get that put in, maybe I'll find a lucky listener and I'll gift them the other one. Still works fine. There's nothing wrong with it. I mean, it does everything right. And then that'll be it. I promise. There'll be no more stuff, right? I'm out of money.
So let me ask you this. Tell me in cloud app security, what is a session policy?
Well, think about it. First of all, to understand what the 2 words mean. So all our English-speaking listeners and those who don't, what is a session? A session is a series of activity that is within an active frame or time slot that is actively occurring. So I'm doing something in session. A policy is a group of conditions and or rule sets that have been manifested in technology and or the way you go about. So think of a policy as a way to control behavior and monitor behavior. So when I'm looking at a session policy, I can now look at someone who may be doing something such as copying a file to an unsanctioned cloud storage repository such as Box, Dropbox, whatever it may be.
So they're
And then
connected to a cloud application of some sort through their browser.
through their browser, or if there is a fat application or a installed application, session control is being able to watch that session primarily based on identity, right? Identity is strong, and then being able to say, I can control the interaction or what that person is doing. That session is consisting of a frame of an operational framework, and they're doing something in that session until such time they stop the task that they're doing. So I can look at it and inspect that thing from application use to file use and be able to break that session and or manipulate and control the behavior of the person in that session, either based on identity, application heuristics, or conditions and the personality and behavior of the application. Everything from
So,
if you want to, yeah.
the underground session policy here, is it because you have Defender for Endpoint that's actually giving that telemetry, or is it because of the authentication that's happened with the? It's because of the authentication and the API and the tracking that the cloud application has, is what you're saying.
Session.
Okay.
Because you can have session inspection and session application proxy and not use MDE.
Okay.
Identity, right? So I can control it. Yeah.
Out of all the different policy types within inside cloud app security, which one do you think people are utilizing the least that they should utilize more? What in that area of policies are people not using?
DLP, not understanding that there's a huge amount of integration with Azure Information Protection, AIP, and now with the uniform DLP across all the products. That's one. OAuth, watching OAuth, unauthorized OAuth, when you allow individuals to authorize access to your client organization by their sign-in, turn that off, right? Make them, because I go into customers and I see application concessions and permissions like, we don't know what that is, right? Another one would be privileged cloud usage. Being able to understand that you may have more Azure, AWS, or GCP tenants.
How do you manage that within inside a policy?
I can create a policy to watch well-known cloud providers and be able to understand that if someone is using a single sign-on to sign on to multiple clouds, do I have privilege creep? Meaning that why is this person signing on as a non-privileged user in one cloud provider, but then signing on to something that has a privilege level of a global administrator of sort in another, right? So that is making sure that you don't have identity mismatch and privilege creep, right? So that's a good one to use inside of it.
So on the DLP side, is there a DLP policy, or is that a file policy, or what is that?
Yes, both.
Both, okay.
File type, file classification, file labeling, and the ability to write your own. Not only just use the built-ins, but because Cloud App Security understands the DLP policies and conditions and labels that you may establish inside Office 365.
And the compliance manager, admin center, whatever it's called. Isn't there two engines? Yeah. You have the one that's inside compliance, but then doesn't Cloud App Security have its own DLP engine or classification engine? Or
it does, of a sort, but you'll see in this convergent, right? But okay. Cloud App Security can also understand DLP tagging in sources, either that you write custom or from other vendors.
Right. So from the third-party vendors. So from there.
And most people don't know about that. because it's not super intuitive. You drop down and then you'll see it. I'm like, oh, I can write my own custom labeling tagging, right? It's not super intuitive about where it is, but it goes to the point where it's, excuse my sailor talk here. Microsoft security products are beyond being able to half-ass do them now. You could take one of those products and become an expert and have a viable consulting IT career, right? You'll be found out once you get into some of the advanced setup, configuration, monitoring, and response in any of these products now. Even MDI, Microsoft Defender for Identity, because I did not understand truly how Kerberos worked until you told me to go to that YouTube, and I watched it 4 times. And people were telling me, oh yeah, I know how authentication works. No, you don't. I asked someone what TGT is. Asked them what a pack file is. Right. And I watched that guy. I was like on Jimmy Kimmel when he writes the notes, I was like, did not know that. Did not know that. Wow. This is how you overpass the hash. Oh.
I think that's Jimmy Fallon, isn't it?
Jimmy Fallon, yeah. He goes, right? So thank you for that, man. And so now the lights are coming on, because I was getting a little afraid, man. I was coming too salesy, and my kung fu was getting weak. Right? I was being found out.
I mean, the people that you're dealing with, they're gonna know. So I mean,
you will be found out. You got a mature crowd, or especially, yeah.
How important is it for somebody that's dealing with cloud app security to understand the compliance capabilities with inside the E5 license or whatever, the compliance center, all the policies, capability that's there?
I don't know. I mean, SNC is its own beast, right? It's a beast. When you start looking at inside a threat and all the capabilities and stuff in there and all these things, it's made for that. If your organization is using cloud app security, find a person and tell them, I want you to be my SME. Go through the cloud app security ninja training. Watch Matt Sussman on LinkedIn Learn and all his stuff, right?
Yeah.
Sign up for the community and learn it. Because I learned something new the other day about how it goes about its business, right? So in impossible travel, there's a sensitivity label, right? And so low means don't flag all the time, let the learning do its thing to understand how our things are going. I wrote a custom policy to say, and it's sort of working. Disregard impossible travel unless you see multiple login failures on the same identity, anomalous behavior trying to use a Tor, right? Anomalous login attempt from anomalous IP address, meaning Tor. Combine that with login from an infrequent country. Don't let impossible travel just be the sole determiner. Say infrequent country. So add these policies together and create you sort of a super policy that's not a built-in, a custom policy. And that way you have a threshold to say, I see the impossible travel, but I'm not going to alert on it unless I see these other 4 underlining policies that I add as conditions inside of it. Then let me do it, right? What I'm having issues with is trying to understand how to add that to an alert from Azure Active Directory Identity Protection, AADIP, right? And so you can turn that on, but also in Cloud App Security, there is an identity posture setting. Go look in there too and make sure that's turned on. Yeah. So that was challenging, not because of I didn't know how to do it. I didn't know how to combine that rule to make it viable, and you can't test it, right? So I had to test it by trying to VPN to somewhere else, right? And then try to see if it catches it. And so I think I almost got it right. But now I'm cutting down that noise, because here's my gripe about MSSPs. Don't call yourself an MSSP. The only thing you're doing is scraping the API and generating a ticket based on an alert that I already got somewhere else. You're not helping me, because now I can't stitch that incident ID or ticket number back to something that's relevant, because when I look in Sentinel or I look at something, that incident or alert ID has nothing to do with your product. Map it back, right? You're killing me. You're killing me, Big. You're killing me, Smalls. When you do that. So you asking a whole lot of questions about MCAS today. What do you want? What are you up to, Frank?
No. I'm serious. I went back, looked at some of the Matt Sussman videos, and he brought up some really good things. And I think that there's more focus, I think, on discovery than using policies in the content out there. And I think that there's not enough good best practices for dealing with policies and cloud app security that I can find out there.
I agree. You see more discovery because it's eye candy and it satisfies the bean counters and the executives, especially when you run the executive report. Here are all your unsanctioned apps. Here's the top downloaders. Here's the top offenders, right? That looks good. But when you need to start going writing policy, and I think a lot of people don't know why I'm so a big fan of cloud app security. I used to work on a project at Microsoft called, what was it called? Fish Hunter, right before Sentinel. And then we rewrote it to become MATA, the Malicious Activity Detection Accelerator. Myself and a Windows expert at Microsoft called Andrea Fisher. Hopefully I get her on the show. Andrea, if you're listening, need you on the show. One of the top MDE persons. And don't worry about Franklin bothering you. He'll be quiet, I promise, right?
Maybe she should co-host the show with you one time when I'm not here. Then that will work out.
Yeah, right. So because I had to get so knowledgeable about how endpoint API calls in Fish Hunter and MATA, I learned more than I thought I would learn about Azure DevOps. Understanding how to push code and updates via CI/CD. And then I also happened to learn how to, now that I'm a programmer, we rewrote everything from ASP to .NET, and then we rewrote it to .NET Core, and then we got it off SQL as an IaaS workload to SQL as a service, and then rewriting it again to use Cosmos DB. I'll tell you something about Cosmos DB. Cosmos DB will run up your bill too, because your resource units is similar to what you do with IoT. You're writing, right? And next thing you know, you're getting this bill. And that bill came up and like, oh crap, it's $3,000. What do we do? Right. So I learned a lot about Cosmos DB there, right? So yeah, that's why I became a huge fan of that. And then Jared Poppelman at Microsoft, when I met him at an event, he is the creator, or was the creator, maintainer of the PowerShell modules for that. And it should be an update to the PowerShell modules for MCAS coming up soon.
So are you going to be able to get someone on that basically on a weekly basis deals with policies with inside cloud app security for me?
Why weekly? Oh, you mean just come listen to the show?
No, have somebody come in and talk about their experience with writing policies.
Yeah, I can get a guy at Microsoft to come on. Yep. I'll write it down right now. He's easy, man. You gotta give him a 6-pack of beer. All right. I made a note. I'll reach out to him. I know he's super busy, but he's also an identity expert too. I am. Mm-hmm. So I can do that.
All right.
Done.
Do you have anything else?
Well, we had 2 topics from the last podcast.
Which I don't have up, so and I can't find that, so
I got
to push that.
You got it? You got to push it. I just want to talk about one that I think is interesting, and we'll cut the podcast a little bit short. Remember last week we were talking about network assessment using MDE, right? So it's not brand new.
Private that wasn't one of the topics of last week.
Yes, it was. You said we didn't have time.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
And I said, hey man, let's talk about that. And so now that I made a buffoon of myself because I can't find the doggone link. Hold on for a second. So we talked about here you're not prepared. You spend too much time trying to fix your old. What do you got? A Toyota Camry, the dog car? Not a dog car, but he uses it just to transport his dogs to our listeners out here, right? Anyway, let me. It's in the show notes. If not, we'll get it back there. But let me tell it what it uses, what it is. I don't know who Microsoft is trying to compete with, but being able to do a inventory of your environment from a pipes and plumbing, ones and zeros, Ethernet, wireless, right? Anything has the ability to have an SMTP uh, trap or community defined, right? Whether it be read only or read write. So what you can do, you can download a specialized agent onto a machine that looks like you're onboarded into MDE. And I don't recall that the machine actually has to be onboarded into MDE prior to this, or if you do this, it simultaneously turns it into a network scanner as well as a managed endpoint for it. So I'm going to try it this week because I downloaded it already. I'm just trying to figure out which machine to put it on. What it will do is scan that subnet or define subnet that you have. I think out of the box is going to be aware of the subnet that it resides over, and whether it can traverse VLANs, I'm not sure yet, but I'm really interested in this. And I think this is because I'm starting to see an exodus. And once again, the opinions of me and what I'm saying doesn't reflect that of myself, my company, my employer, or my friends and family, right?
Not
Starting
even
to see people,
yourself.
not even myself. I'm seeing
Okay.
people starting to not renew SolarWinds, right? They never left because they didn't have a reason to, but now they're going back and they are reevaluate, do they re-up or do they pull this product out of their environment? But there's still a need to be able to inventory and scan your network to see what you have running out there. So the network assessment allows, and I think that's what it's called, the network assessment feature in MDE allows you to go in. As a matter of fact, if you go to the unified portal, it's in there. It surely is.
Okay.
That's where you download it from, right? So you can scan a subnet and anything that's running SNMP at least version 3 and you have a defined community or that, it allows you to be able to inventory that coming in. Now, there are some limitations on how many IP addresses that can be done with it, but the number is fairly large. And you can have multiple assessment tap points, right? Or assessment endpoints. So that if you do hit that number, right, huge number, you just deploy another one and give it a defined range. Now, can you do it by dash notation? Start at this IP address and go, or you can do it by CIDR, right? Give me a subnet mask and give me everything on that, right? So it's best to understand, you know, what your networking IP address scheme layout is, where that resides. And I think if you really had to dumb it down, if you're transversing a WAN, you probably want to put it on a local segment and then just talk back. That's pretty cool. It allows you to go in and say, okay, I have these switches, I have these endpoints, and I have these things that are on my network, and be able to scan that. The other part about it, I think it also does, it can also scan for, and if I'm wrong, I'm sure one of our listeners will come back. I think it can also scan, or maybe a different feature that can say, I see a Windows machine, and guess what? It is not on board into MDE. What are you
All
going to
right.
do
So,
about that?
so at the top of device inventory here, I'm sharing
Mhm.
my screen. It says you are now discovering unmanaged devices in basic mode. You can turn on standard mode to discover more devices and enrich device info. Starting May 9th, 2021, the standard mode will become the default discovery mode. So what is discovery mode? So standard discovery, this mode allows endpoints to actively probe observed devices in the network to enrich collecting data, helping you build a reliable and coherent device inventory. Standard mode uses smart active probing to discover even more information about observed devices. Okay, so basically they're doing an nmap of your environment.
Yeah, Nmap. Yeah, Nmap is more applicable than Nexus because you're not looking for vulnerabilities. I'm just looking for inventory, right? So there you go. I think this is useful. Now, here's a bone to pick. Make it easy so SMBs, small mom and pop shops, will adopt it. You know, it's an enterprise type of stuff, right? So I'm looking at what protocols for active probing, right? So you're looking at ARP tables, FTP, RDP. That's pretty cool, right? I don't even know what does WSD stand for again. I forget. I know SSH is Telnet, Universal Plug and Play, IPP. I do not know what WSD stands for.
Um,
It don't matter. Um, how frequent is active probing? So that's pretty good. The other part about this is if you scroll back up, it gives me the impression that you can just run this PowerShell script independent of it, but you won't have any place to report it until a rich GUI interface. See that's PowerShell script? I bet you can copy that script and run it, but you won't be able to manifest the data in something that makes it easy for humans to understand. So it has to go back to it, right? It's a unicast scan of PS1. Yep, that's what it was called. I'm interested in this because I come from that networking background, and yeah.
Why is this something in Endpoint Manager versus here?
You want my highly opinionated opinion? They couldn't figure out where else to they couldn't figure out where else to put it. And so since this thing sits on the network where a lot of the bad actors reside, yeah, why not put it there, right? Right. So there you go. Well, you want it in cloud app security? Well, here's why. You want a real answer. Right? People are probably saying on the thing, Ed, quit BS and give us a real answer. Here's a real answer. What other on-premise solution will allow you to run this? It's very limited. Nobody's really running ATA anymore. So if you had ATA, could you make it part of the sensor/agent? Right? Do you want to bog down the lightweight gateway agent that's sitting on part of Azure Advanced Threat Protection, aka a Microsoft Defender for Identity? You don't want to bog that agent down with more features because it's already putting a minimum impact on your authentication processing, right? Because it sits on a domain controller. So what other places would you put this? And here's the other thing. It's not really a big deal. You're dedicating a specific machine to do this or machines to do this, right? So you can have a machine that, machines are a dime a dozen and you throw it on there, right? That sort of makes sense, maybe.
Yeah, I mean, maybe we'll come to Endpoint Manager at some point.
Or you're talking about where it's reporting to rather than where it's installed to. Network scanning and discovery is not really managing the endpoint. So I don't think going into Microsoft Endpoint Management is a great place for it because now you're getting away from what it does.
Well, why wouldn't they want an inventory of what's out there?
Well, endpoint management is for managing the very things that you're showing.
Right.
Things that I touch. I'm managing this. I don't think you want to put this in here and give the impression that you can manage your switch, router, or inventory that has nothing that's not Microsoft centric or Android centric or Mac centric, right? So it's really looking at what humans interact in. Humans very rarely interact into an access point other than using it for data transport. Humans very rarely interact to a switch unless in the CLI configuring it or passing traffic. Humans very rarely interact into a web gateway unless they're trying to establish a session to be able to do their job. So I needed to put it somewhere they can sit in the background and do this stuff for me so I get an understanding on how my traffic is transversing my physical infrastructure and if it's entering or exiting this, right? I don't know how much in depth it's going to go. I have yet to deploy it, but that's going to be one of the things I am going to do. So I don't think putting it inside the Microsoft Endpoint Management is a great place for it. I mean, it was just, for lack of a better word, I'm sorry, for lack of a better, there was nowhere else to put it, right? You can't put it, could you put it in Sentinel? That's not what Sentinel does. Could you put it in MDO? No, that's not really what it does. Could you put it in MDI? You could, but do you want to modify that agent that sits on and then if you didn't want to use it. So.
I think the endpoint team wanted to see if, or Defender for Endpoint team wanted to know if there's any sort of lateral movement going over to a machine that doesn't actually have the agent in there and they're hitting an IP address or something like that, or a machine name that they're not aware of from a forensic standpoint. So that's probably why they they were pushing for it. So I understand why Defender for Endpoint, from a forensic standpoint, would want to have that information. I just think that there's also value over here on Endpoint Manager. So,
Well, let me ask you another question. I'm going to defend that you put it on there, right? So I'm going to be the advocate. I'm going to write the reason why you do it there. Okay. Where else would you install it? Would you put it on a mobile device? No. Remember the old Microsoft Cloud App Security Discovery? Before Windows 10 reported back directly into MCAS, you had to put the agent on it. That was
I mean,
kludgy.
most enterprises are scanning their network for, unknown devices anyways. So I think that Defender for Endpoint just wants to have the additional information from a forensic standpoint, which I understand. So,
And it makes sense, man. You don't want to deploy taps. You don't. Not very many people using protocol analyzers and gatherers. Any sophisticated infrastructures are, right?
I mean, the bottom line is that it is true that, you hear a lot about company acquisitions. Hey, we didn't know that this machine was connected directly to the internet, and so on. So I understand that, obviously the attackers map out your network and they know more about your network than you. So obviously the defender should know just as much. But that's the case. All right. So who do we have for next week?
We have said here Andy. He is a program group manager and or architect that help write up the methodology and the framework for using Azure Data Explorer as a repository for your long-term retention in Azure Sentinel. I became aware of him by watching and listening to one of his webinars. Hugely informative.
Okay.
Knowing that you can do it is not simple enough for knowing how you should do it and how you should architect it. So he's coming on, and then after that, we're going to have Brody Caldwell, and Brody's going to talk security and compliance. So we have two guests. That gives me enough time to stand up the rest of the guests or get them committed to May. So we're going to have some very.
We have some international, so we might have to change the time. I'm looking forward to the compliance talk because we don't talk about it enough on here.
And we need to, because it's a big thing. Compliance is a big thing. I don't know if a lot of our users know this, but they're retiring the old compliance manager, the classic, like in 2 weeks, if not now. So now you have to go to the Service Trust portal, and now you're gonna get the new compliance manager, right? So if you go down to
Yeah, they took some of the compliance stuff out of the security
yeah
portal when they did the unified side.
So if you go to compliance manager, go up right below home.
Oh, the compliance manager. Okay. Yep.
Yeah, so they're going to retire the old version, and you're only going to be able to do it now. You don't see it here. This is you're right. We need to do more compliance, right? Because I don't think people understand the power of that compliance manager. So yeah, there are some tools that do a little bit better because that's what they do, like Archer and a bunch of stuff. And whatever some of the big five use to go out and do compliance and audit, PCI, PwC, E&Y, and these guys will come out and do it. But if you need this to be able to come in and tie into your stuff, we need to do like a 2-part series on how this thing ties in into your M365 in Azure. And now I believe it's going to be some tiebacks because Azure Security Center or Azure Defender for Server, that's what it does. It's a posture validation and alerting. Yeah.
So they do have the SC 400 test and course material. The course material should be out there on Learn that people can go through. So yeah, I mean that's I know this very well once I'm back into this area. So somebody that deals with it every single day. I think Brody, it should be very interesting.
Well, hey man, it's good to talk to you. I hope things work out with your car. Thanks for checking up on me with my arm that's been burned off to the damn nub, right? Yeah. So I'm excited about our guests coming up. I think we're gonna learn a lot. Yeah, let's do it. You and I touch base during the week, and I want to hip you up to some cool things that I think I want to do. Good luck with you on your offensive security pen testing expert, you know, journey. I think
Evasion.
evasion. So
Right.
you're trying to hide from guys like me. It can't be done.
It's definitely interesting doing the exercises and then doing it on Defender for Endpoint with everything actually turned on. It's very interesting
Well,
with all
it's a
the
skill.
ASR rules turned on.
It's a skill, and here's how you do it. Don't assume you're smarter than everybody else. Right, right. And for those who are out there who don't believe that the bad guys don't have their own subscription, how do you think you learn how to evade it? I go get my own subscription and I start beating up on it. And then once I realize you can't, oh, I do 2 spaces here. They didn't see that.
Don't
Eventually,
get me started. Don't get me started.
we're going to talk about that, right?
Yeah, I was hinting towards that, but that's okay. All right, so next week, I'm looking forward to it. I think that's a very important topic. The next few weeks, and then also we'll see about our schedule for May to make sure we can get accommodate the international people with their times.
Yeah, and for any of our listeners that want to come on as guest hosts, I'm going to take an extended, what extended? I'm going to take me some leave of absence the 1st of June, right? So I'm going to be going for at least 2 podcast sessions. So,
All right, you have a good week. I'm looking forward to next week.
and always remain thirsty, my friends. Have
All
a
right,
good one.
until
I
then.
thought.